let me welcome our panel and these 5 new states. Please check out the faculty bios that are up and online so you can check out more about these individuals. But very quickly, I'll give them all just 30 seconds to quickly introduce yourself. So, Rob, do you want to start?
Hi, everyone. I'm Robin Grace. I'm the Chief of Advanced Air Mobility Integration and Strategy with MassDOT Aeronautics. And just a quick blurb about MassDOT Aeronautics. We oversee the 35 public use airports across the Commonwealth. And we are not just concentrated on traditional aviation, but we're also very innovative. So we have a drone operations program, which I used to lead, accomplishing over 5,000 flights. We also have a Commonwealth UAS integration program that is looking at remote operations, BVLOS operations, and last but not least, advanced air mobility, which I lead.
Hello, my name is Michael Healander. I'm CEO of Airspace Link. Think of us as the air traffic control system for drones. That's what I tell my parents. We are before you fly supplier. We're a land supplier. We currently support 6,000 businesses and government agencies today. We have 100,000 drone pilots in our system, active users every month. So we primarily focus on the U.S. only. From small engineering companies to Department of Defense are using our platform for integrating drones. We have large program deployed in Michigan, and I'll be representing Michigan's UAS systems.
Wonderful. Hi, I'm Todd Basile. I'm a partner at the law firm Greenberg, Traurig. I'm a tech transactions attorney, and I lead our robotics and autonomous technologies group. That is to say, I'm just a huge nerd with a law degree. Yeah, I used to be an engineer at Bell Helicopter, and I'm a Part 107 drone pilot, and so very excited to be here today and represent Texas.
Good morning, I'm Ron Leach. My company's Leach Strategic Partners. 30 years of aviation experience, 15 of that was with the New Jersey State Police, where I started their drone program. I primarily provide consulting services for public safety who want to start their drone programs. In addition to that, I co-manage a Cape Atlantic, the Cape Atlantic Test Range centered in Cape May County, New Jersey. We're one of the few across the country. We just had a recent event with the University of Alaska doing drone detection, and the impact of the study was going to have on public safety frequencies. If there's any of these detection pieces, we're going to have any impact on that or the maritime environment as well. If you have any questions, just reach out to me through LinkedIn or my website, Leach Strategic Partners.
Hey, I'm Josh Turner. I'm a partner at Wiley, Rein, which is a law firm in Washington, D.C. We do a lot of work on drones. I've been doing that now for a decade, I guess, which is kind of crazy to think about, especially on the front of FAA preemption and state and federal roles and how those roles can work together better. You can reach me through my website also, wiley.law, which is kind of a weird domain, but it works. Trust me, you're not being hacked. And Mark?
Well, good morning. My name is Mark Genung. I work for the University of Nevada, Reno. UNR assumed operational control of the Nevada UAS test site in 2022. We just assumed operational control of the Reno Beyond program late last year. These are 2 national jewels that arguably have been underused. And so what I'm doing is bringing that back together. We're doing our own, if you will, version of the Flight of the Phoenix. I'm a Part 107 pilot with about 3,000 hours of experience. I'm also a PPO with about 250 hours of experience. And in a previous lifetime, used to boil water of radioactive metal for the U.S. Navy.
Well, thank you, everyone. So to kick us off, the panel's already actually previewed a lot of the different topics that we'll be discussing today, and really showing that there's a large variety in how does a state become drone ready. And so we're going to start off by kicking on the state scorecard. When we started this discussion a couple of years ago, there was a report that came out from the Mercator Center at George Mason University, and it has not come out for 2025. I have my suspicions why, but it was a controversial report that we did discuss last year quite a bit, and it took an opportunity to rank the states in their drone readiness and their drone friendliness, essentially based on 6 key criterias. In that report, I think it was the July of 2023 report, Arkansas was actually ranked number 1, Oklahoma was number 2, and little North Dakota was number 3. So you can imagine why I might have some issues. But we're not going to deep dive too much. But Josh, I want to turn it over to you first here and kind of just walk through, whether we agree with the rankings or not, the 6 criteria that were in the report do deserve some discussion. So can you walk us through those?
Well, I can, and I mean, I agree with you. The report hasn't come out this year. It did come out last year. I question whether it's going to come out again. It was provocative, and I think that was part of the reason the report came out in the first place, was to provoke conversation. One of the things that the report, I think, highlights and emphasizes, as you say, it had a series of criteria by which it ranked the various different states, and maybe one of the most important was whether or not the states were taking action to grab leasing rights and make them available for pay, essentially, so that you could establish drone highways within the state. Now, this is a concept that's sort of interesting. I understand why Mercatus had it in mind, but it misconceives how the airspace works. It fundamentally misconceives the role of states. And I think it fundamentally misconceives what states should be doing to be drone friendly or drone ready. We, in partnership with AUVSI, came out with the Drone Prepared program, which I sought to refocus the conversation on what we thought were more appropriate steps for states to take. That's a tongue twister. And I think we were largely successful in that effort, really got people thinking about where states can make a difference, and why it's inappropriate for states to be talking about managing the airspace at a very granular level, and much more appropriate for states to be doing the kinds of things that the folks on this panel are going to be talking about today.
Perfect. One of the areas that's in that report talks about avigation or avigation, however you want to pronounce it. I've heard it both ways. That's not a term that a lot of people know yet. Can you explain that term?
Yeah, avigation. So the concept there is people have, I mean, and this is it, the report proceeds from a number of flawed premises. One of the flawed premises is people have a fundamental right to control who flies over their property. And if that is true, then you're going to have a real problem getting clearance to fly over everyone's property, because you're going to have real trouble clearing lease rights for overflight. That's a problem that we dealt with and solved 100 and some years ago when aviation first developed. The same kind of concept was advanced when biplanes were flying, and it became very clear. I mean, someone on an earlier panel mentioned you have a statutory right to fly in the navigable airspace in the United States, and that is at the margins questionable, but as a general matter, very, very true and unassailable. So avigation is the idea that you lease rights or clear rights, or the local governments secure rights to fly over certain properties that give you the right to operate UAS in a way that you wouldn't otherwise be able to. They're sort of highways in the sky is how the report conceives of avigation, meaning navigation, but in the air.
Perfect. Okay, so I can definitely see where we in this room don't like avigation, but there are certain states that have gravitated to this concept. So what states have avigation laws on the books?
Well, I don't have handy a full list. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I will say, and I think part of the reason that I don't have a full list is because this actually hasn't caught on, I think, in the way that SCORUP wanted it to, and that the Mercatus Center wanted it to, because it is in significant tension with the Federal Aviation Act and with the sort of concept of how overflight works in the United States. That said, I mean, even apart from avigation, we have seen a number of actions over the past year or so to restrict operations and to really try and grab control over the way in which drones operate at the state level. We've seen that in Florida. We've seen that in Ohio, some recent ones. Iowa has a bill that I think was just signed by the governor within the past few days. All of those are more limited, right? They purport to restrict the kinds of operations one can do over, say, farmland or over, other kinds of designated areas. Prisons is a popular one. And some of them purport to be supplemental, right? We're just supplementing what the federal government does, so it gives our law enforcement an opportunity to to go after these behaviors in a way that they wouldn't otherwise. They are all, though, tricky from a federal control standpoint because they all do make the state the arbiter of where and how you can fly, and I think that is fundamentally inconsistent with the sort of way in which we've set up aviation in the United States.
Perfect. And so that's a great segue into what state laws and what state drone laws are on the books. So you've already talked about aviation laws, and you talked about some of those other ones that are being proposed. And I know North Dakota was one, on that list. My team knows I call it "Don't Fly Over Cows" bill. But it was similarly of where states are currently at in proposing new legislation. So maybe Josh for a broad overview first, but then I do want to give the panelists to discuss what are the laws that are on the books in your state that are either pro or anti, drones that help you rank in that drone readiness. So Josh?
Yeah, and just, let me just sort of break them into broad categories. I already talked a little bit about operational control or asserted operational control. Don't fly over cows, don't fly over feedlots, don't fly over oil facilities. A lot of this came up because we heard in the earlier panels about 2209 and the delays in that process. States felt the need to protect their constituents or who had concerns about drones. And so that's one of the sort of broad categories. I wonder whether we will see that fade now that, hopefully 2209 is moving forward. Another one that's sort of interesting is there has been a real interest in national security. And so a whole bunch of states recently have passed bills trying to restrict the use of DJI or other adversary drones, either by their local law enforcement, state law enforcement, or just sort of more generally. Those have their own problems in terms of national security and state role in national security. But I think also we see on the federal level some real sharp moves in that direction that might, I don't know if it'll solve the problem, but it might make that problem less relevant from a state standpoint. And then you get the sort of more typical state laws about, aviation generally and licensing and taxing and that kind of stuff. But I think where we see the real benefits are where states are focusing on economic activity and the benefits of drones and looking to encourage that kind of, workforce development, encourage those kinds of testing facilities and that kind of thing. And I hope that's what some of the folks are going to talk about here.
Good. I hope so too. So anyone else who's up first, talk about what laws are on your state's books.
So New Jersey's is pretty far behind as far as the UAS go. We're a surface transportation-based state. They're focused primarily on highways, buses, trains, that sort of thing. Aviation is a back burner issue for them. Under the Department of Transportation, we have a division of Aeronautics that had 3 people working there who retired and have now come back to work as contractors there. So that's not really a priority. The priority in the state initially with some of the laws that were passed were focused on public safety use of drones. They wanted to restrict police and fire from using drones without warrants and other certain circumstances. We do have a couple of beneficial laws on the books. One of them will protect first responders on a scene. So if you're using your drone and interfere with that first responder scene, public safety now has a way to correct that behavior or pull somebody into court. They have a law that also protects correctional facilities. Now, how they drafted the legislation was they were focusing on the activity use of the drone, not the actual flight of the drone. I had an assemblyman contact me recently. He wanted to add an attachment to that same law to prohibit drone use 200 feet above a school. So you have to explain to them that once that drone's in the airspace, that's no longer in your purview. So when the lawmakers are trying to come up with these bills that they think is going to serve in the public interest, you really need to get a hold of them and explain to them before you make bad legislation, here's how you can solve that problem. You can't take off or land from a school property. What started this whole thing with the 200 feet above a school was a realtor who was in the area, went to 3 different schools and actually was peering in the window in Salem County. So the public outrage was, you got to do something. So he thought he was going to do something positive. Educating the legislature and making friends with them before they make bad case law that's going to eventually embarrass them if it gets in front of a court where it's going to be overturned, I think is more beneficial to the industry than anything else. You need to engage the lawmakers before they handcuff you.
U.S.? Go for it.
I'll step up here for Texas since we're all here in the great state. Yeah, I mean, I think the themes we're hearing from Josh and from Ron, I mean, they echo throughout all the state law, right? You're not supposed to control ops at the state and local level. You can do indirect things to control ops, like where you can take off from and land. And, if you don't have BV loss authority, that says how far you can go and whether you can get to somewhere. I think in Texas, one of the key focus of our state laws is from a privacy standpoint. So there's a general rule that it focuses around capturing images, okay? And you're not allowed to use a drone to capture images with the intent to surveil, okay? Now that isn't really defined directly in our laws, so there's a little bit of ambiguity around that, but that's the general idea. And there was I might even touch on this later. There was a First Amendment challenge against that law. I think it was 2 years ago. It made its way up through the appeals court, got denied cert at the Supreme Court as well. But basically the media said, hey, look, you're infringing on our First Amendment rights to go do news media and such. And the ultimate ruling was, no, that law stands because we're not focusing necessarily on content as much as public safety and things of that nature. So that ended up surviving. So privacy law is very dominant in the Texas landscape. We have a laundry list of uses that are expressly okay in terms of capturing images. Public property, you can do it. Public safety, there's a lot of thou can do's there. So that's friendly from our state perspective. There's some on the commercial side with real estate brokers, professional land surveying, professional engineering. The caveat there being you're not supposed to be able to identify anybody who's captured in that photo, which obviously imposes some restraints there. We do have some no-fly zone laws, which I think we would all be like, I don't know about that, right? But I don't think they've been effectively challenged at all. So critical infrastructure, sports venues with more than 30,000 seat capacity, unless it's government or commercial purposes or on behalf of the owner. So we do have some no-fly zones in Texas. We'll see how long those last. And then I'd say kind of on the pro-drone front as well, there's laws on the books that say counties and municipalities can't regulate the operations of drones, right? So they want to keep this at the state level. They want to keep it even across the board and not have this patchwork of, not in my backyard type stuff, NIMBY type stuff. There's a few exceptions to that, special events, and if it's actually a facility owned by the locality. But that's the general gist of the Texas drone law landscape.
Perfect. No, thank you. Mark, Nevada, as well as maybe let's not or do what's on the books now, but has there also been anything that was interesting proposed that either failed or passed or is still in the mix? So go ahead.
Well, Nevada is a state that has legislature meets every 2 years.
Same.
And so there's a number of things that are going on right now. And I would also just draw your attention to the fact that our governor, Lombardo, is the former sheriff of Clark County, the home of Las Vegas. So strong interest and support of drones for DFR. So what we've had in the past, quite frankly, been what's echoing what's been said before, where drones are used and you're doing searches that those have to have a warrant. And that's, quite frankly, from my perspective, I don't want to redundant because that's already a requirement for any other means. We're also seeing great support for what we're doing with the Nevada Center for Applied Research, which is a sub-organization within the University of Nevada, Reno, which operates the U.S. test site. So we're getting great support from the legislature as they're carefully considering how they're moving forward on the funding. And again, I can't talk too much about that because we're still in the end game of that, but we're getting incredible support from those to do that because, and there's probably a lot of good reasons why there were not a lot of other laws in Nevada because we're the most mountainous state in the lower 48. 80% of it is Bureau of Land Management land, federal land. It's high desert, and it's a pretty much a Western community where people do their business, ranching, mining, with hopefully minimal restrictions from the government. And we're kind of seeing that as well in the UAS industry. So from our perspective, I think we're a great state to do operations in, and I think we're seeing great support from the legislature moving forward. So I'm excited.
That's good. So as we move down to Michigan and Massachusetts here, you're not off the hook. Not only what maybe laws are on the books in your states, but also we already heard a bit of how important it is to do outreach to the legislatures from an education standpoint, a proactive approach. If you got any like tips or best practices in that regime, which I know you guys do, share those with the audience as well, because I think that'll be critically important.
If I could jump on that, we just had a legislative day where I was able to represent as an element of the University of Nevada, Reno, where we did have a chance to talk to our legislators. And so that fundamental presence, that ability to talk to the legislators, explain what you're trying to do, was incredibly important and exceptionally well received for us. So that's again, when you only have a process that happens every 2 years, you got to make that window 6 to 8 weeks work really well for you.
Yes, very much so. Michael.
I think one of the things that Michigan focuses on the investments that they're making into UAS, whether it be putting in funding for infrastructure to support operators to fly much cheaper, whether it be weather sensors, detect and avoid, communication networks. This MDOT is investing in a lot of that, and that infrastructure is being paid for. It's on fiber optics. It's backed up and at aviation grade systems throughout. In this case, the area is Detroit Air. So what's happening is we're finding that all the cities are saying, hey, we want some of that. So now we have about 50 cities that have some of the largest drone programs. And this is where it gets interesting. We have some cities going up to 1,000 drones. I don't think people realize that cities are using drones to do work now. Drones as a first responder is the first push into it, but roof inspections, facade inspections, you name it, they're starting to find use cases. And now what's happening is the state is saying, okay, well, you have all these point solutions. We're gonna pay for the infrastructure and put that in. Your point solutions can plug into that. And then MEDC, the Economic Development Group, is starting to say, well, how do we activate that? So now we have one part of the government managing the infrastructure and software and all the expensive stuff so that the cities can use it to do work, and then turn it externally so people can use that to do more economic development, whether it be linear inspection systems, commercial use cases, drones as a first responder is on both sides, package delivery is a lot. So what's happening is all the cities are creating the demand gen, and those cities have those representatives that go to the state and ask for funding. And that's where we're seeing a massive upswell of the actual communities are the ones asking for more drone capabilities, seeing that kids are getting jobs flying drones and so on. So it's kind of this swell you have to create. And sometimes it starts with just the cities asking for drone technology where the state has to listen.
Perfect. Love it. Robin?
All right. So we also did not do well in the Mercatus rankings, and that's okay. And we've really tried to concentrate on things that make sense for Massachusetts. So we've really taken a systems level approach to how to enact drones in our state. So that includes standing up state level task force, integrating emerging technologies like UAS and eVTOL into our long range state transportation planning process, as well as focusing on multimodal infrastructure. So you haven't seen a lot of drone laws actually get enacted in Massachusetts, and there's a reason for it. One, we've really concentrated on education and outreach to our legislators. And when we see something that comes up, we really try to engage. And I think another thing that's been really, really helpful is that we have a lot of engagement, especially through our state aviation caucus. And we're really kind of fortunate because they're not just interested in, traditional aviation. They're really interested in the emerging tech that's coming through, whether we're talking about UAS or eVTOLs or hydrogen-powered aircraft. And we've been able to tie it to public good and public interests. So being able to show the value that it brings to emergency response, to access to healthcare, workforce development, climate technologies. These are all things that they care about. These are all things that the constituents care about. So that's really been a key to having the dialogues that we want to have, as well as preventing too many negative drone laws coming onto the books. We do have one that was enacted many years ago. It was from the Department of Conservation and Recreation, which is part of the EEA, which is the Energy and Environmental Agency, and it has more to do with where you can take off and land drones, and they didn't want drones flying or taking off and landing from public parks, as well as some protected areas. There's a few municipalities that have also enacted something similar, so we'll need to continue with the outreach. But really, the intent has been to not pass anything that would inhibit the industry. We really want to make sure that this is a place where this industry can thrive. And I want to throw out a kudos to AUVSI for their Protect program, because I think it's done a really good job of looking across the 50 states and finding laws that are maybe helpful and maybe discouraging laws that could inhibit the industry.
Perfect. So you mentioned the caucus. Oh, you got go for it. All you.
We're in Texas, and so we got to talk about guns. There is one proposed bill on the docket right now. I have it on good authority. It was never meant to go anywhere, but it's one that's entertaining nonetheless. A representative up in the Plano area, North Texas, put a bill on the books that basically said, look, people can go ahead and shoot down drones if it's over their private property. They're allowed to own a gun, and there's no non-discharge law, firearms discharge law in the area. Obviously, we know that's dead on arrival, but it was pretty comical nonetheless, and it kind of perked up a lot of us. We're like, what is going on here? My understanding behind the scenes is that some of this gentleman's constituents were not happy with some of the drone delivery stuff that was going on. And of course, we're, the drone delivery ground zero of that. And so, maybe that was some red meat, but, Texas, guns, drones, here we are. So,
hey, I always say we have the, we hear the FAA talk about the busiest, most complex, safest airspace in the world, but it's also the freest airspace in the world. Not that free, though.
No, and I feel like every time someone brings this up, right, and asks, is there some one weird trick that I can use to shoot down a drone or take down a drone? And the answer is no. That is a federal crime. You can be prosecuted for it, and you can spend a long time in jail. And there is at least one prosecution that I know about. Now, that was a circumstance where the drone that was shot down was a police drone. But chances are you won't know, unless you're a remote ID expert, who the drone operator is that you're shooting down. And you may well run across a police drone or emergency first responder drone. And I suspect that even in Texas, that would get you into trouble. So please don't do that.
Yes, please. Well, I'm going to go back to a couple of Robin's points, because we have a couple areas we want to cover. And then I do want to leave time for questions, because I'm seeing people are chomping at the bit already. So Robin, you mentioned a couple, the caucus as well as the task force. So that brings us into the category of other accelerators, other things that, other than just laws, that have helped make your states drone friendly. So what have been some of the other areas, whether it be the task force, whether it be the role of a university, whether that be, different groups or initiatives, what would you say has been the recipe for success that helped aid your state? Everyone's just successful automatically. It's easy peasy.
I'll start it off. We have a unique view of operators throughout the United States, cities, states using our system. People probably don't realize we get 30,000 airspace checks per day to our platform. We're able to see what people are doing, but here it comes with this. Everyone that complains about the FAA goes through Airspace Link. The FAA says, Michael, you guys take it. So we get to hear all these crazy things in technology. We get to see these advanced systems deployed. The thing that, as a program manager for Michigan and Detroit regional area, is the ingredients that they put together. There's 6 teams. There's one called a program management team that is in charge of cat herding. That's number one, is managing all the system. There's a team on the infrastructure side who is maintaining the radar, communication networks, sensors, whatever it might be, weather systems. There's a team that's managing that. There's a team that's managing all the software and systems and data. And then there's a third team that is managing the OEMs and the operators. Each operator and OEM is very different. They have very different use cases, and there's a team of people managing those 20 companies and what they want to do. Then it's really neat is that they have another team, which is a demand gen and the community engagement side. That is working with Ford, Stellantis. You want to do parts delivery? You want security? Detroit, you want drones as a first responder? DTE, you want linear inspection? Fox 2, you want drones as a media? Okay, you all sit over here. And then we have a regulatories team. That is MDOT. We have MDOT, the city of Detroit, and we have an FAA project manager. You put all that together and you do matchmaking. You say, all right, Stellantis, you want to do fastener deployments on your campus from here to here. Volatus is a good pick, and you guys. And then a concept of operations teams created, and then they select what systems they want. When an Alphabet Wing comes in or a Zipline, hey, we don't want to use your infrastructure. We're verticalized. So it's an a la carte system, and that's so 17 businesses have moved to Michigan in the past 6 months this year to operate with customers in a commercial environment. That is what's really awesome. So that's why I'm so excited, because we're seeing operations at a commercial scale with customers.
Yeah, so not just the recipe for success, but actually seeing and tasting how good that recipe is.
Seeing it, and it's in a very controlled environment, and now the budgets are creating to expand it.
Right.
Now all these cities are like, we want some of that. How do we get that out here? The hospital networks are asking for it now. So
if you've been to one state, you've been to one state. That was a line a colleague told me. So what other recipes do the other states have?
I'll hop in. Yeah, so I mean, you can't talk about Texas without talking about drone delivery in North Texas. So the UTM key site through the FAA and the partnership that they have with industry there has obviously been very critical. I think it was last summer was the first time they really did real flights under the new UTM structure there. And just let me back up for a second. So you've got several drone delivery companies and UTM service providers, I believe is the right term there. Airspace Link is one. I think it was ANRA who was the original one. And are you guys part of it yet? Do you know?
Yeah, we're working through Zipline.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah. So, anyways, bunch of folks there got together, said, hey, look, we're going to start sharing some data, all with the idea of implementing unmanned traffic management to extend, BV loss type of operations. This was key to Wing and Zipline being able to do the kind of ops they're doing for drone delivery in Dallas. And so I think, the key there was they said, all right, look, we're going to share this data, which is its own issue right there. We're going to pull it together, give it to the FAA, give it to NASA, and basically start implementing these systems, industry governed, highly overseen by the FAA, and really just sort of treat it as a pilot project for the integration of these technologies to be able to expand these ops. And the FAA, I believe they're using a lot of the data that's coming out of that to inform their near-term approval process and TAP. Do we have anyone from the FAA in here? Okay. Jessica Brightman, you're not here, are you? Okay. Okay, got it. Yeah, because she would kill me if she heard what I was about to say right now. But the Cliff's Notes on NTAP is almost a pseudo certification process of these technologies that help enable those safety things. So whether it's a matrix-based radar out there, or if it's Airspace Link's service supplier, whether it's whatever they're going to use to basically do that UTM stuff, this sort of gives them the data to say, all right, yeah, that one, all right, we understand it better now. When you guys turn around and put it in your 107 exemption application or what have you, it just sort of streamlines the process,
it does,
right?
Very much so. So for those that don't know, NTAP stands for Near-Term Approval Process. It was a new program that came out of the UAS Integration Office about 2 years ago now. The participants of that are the service providers, which is flipping the script rather than an operator. It's a service supplier that is taking the lead role, participating in 4 phases of the program, and at the end, getting a letter of acceptance from the FAA, which is huge for the service providers aspect. And you're right. What we've seen is regulatory approvals go down from months and months and months. For us, it was 2 years to get our first, but the next one was less than 90 days.
Yeah.
So that streamlining is huge.
But just in case Jessica watches the video of this, it has to be championed by an operator.
Correct.
Okay, this is not a certification of a technology, but
And yes, and because that system does not exist within the regulatory framework yet. Other recipes for success.
Well, for the great state of Nevada, I would say one of the big, when you look at the original announcement for the test sites, that, some things were associated with the University of Alaska Fairbanks. Some things were associated with the Department of Commerce in North Dakota, but quickly established a great relationship with the University of UND to move things forward. The state of Nevada was awarded to the state of Nevada. And so they took kind of an executive branch approach, and in 2022 recognized that by leveraging the University of Nevada, Reno, and the resources we have of a Carnegie R1 research university, and the challenges that we want to solve, I think that's really given us a much better impetus and an acceleration of what the Nevada test site can be. Again, coupled with the high field elevations, the low population density, the relatively open airspace, we're now seeing a tremendous number of companies who want to come to us. We're looking at a company that's got a 6,500-pound aircraft that wants to fly in northern Nevada. Later this summer, I'm going to be flying 2 different drones that want to do firefighting. The aircraft are yet to fly yet. So we're really focused on the test site on low technology readiness level companies to build flight heritage for any number of purposes, defeat gravity, put out the fire kind of approach for them. And then because of the fact that I can take advantage of the high desert environments we have, and now being part of the Reno Beyond program, we can potentially move some of these technologies into suburban environments or even urban environments for the Beyond program to improve the quality of life for of the citizens of Reno. So I would say the fundamental difference for us as an accelerator is the linkage to the university and then our relationship with the FAA to move forward on reinvigorating the test site and the Beyond program. And so it's very exciting times for us.
Well, I got to say this panel is making my job easy because they keep leading into the next topic. So I'm going to segue into lessons learned because a tie to a university, adding that innovation, adding that nimbleness has been critical for a lot of different state success. So for the rest of the group up here, and I'm going to pick on you, New Jersey, because I'm sure you have some lessons learned of late. But what are some lessons learned, whether it be from community engagement, whether it be to when to get the lawyers involved, to partnerships and laws that worked or did not work? What are the lessons learned that you guys can offer the audience?
The biggest lesson is the legislature really doesn't understand the technology, and celebrate your wins is one of the slogans my partner Ray Adams and I use. We had a win in early April. For 2 weeks, we filled up 50 hotel rooms in Cape May County in off-season. Probably close to $500,000 was generated. We had a stakeholders day. Unfortunately, the FAA clamped down on the media. We couldn't really promote what was going on out there from various sources. If you look, you'll find some, but it was a major economic impact to Cape May County, right? In an off-season, and for the legislature and the local county government seeing that, it really made an impression on them. So, stay tuned for next season. Maybe you might see a conference in the shoulder season at the Jersey Shore.
Perfect. Other lessons learned? Ben, Robin?
So I think one of the keys is understanding what works in your state and what doesn't work. So we were trying to leverage things that were unique about Massachusetts. So one thing that we do really well is public-private partnerships. And another thing that we do really well is we bring together, a strong academic community, as well as bringing together government and private industry to solve problems. And this is certainly a space where there's a lot of problems to solve and a lot of opportunities. So, for example, we stood up an Advanced Air Mobility Integration Task Force where we're able to bring together government, academia, and and industry to have conversations that would help further the industry. So together we've worked on 4 major initiatives. One is a market study. The second is a state roadmap, which we're now enacting, piloting infrastructure. So we've already put in charging infrastructure at 3 of our airports. We'll be up to 5 this fall. And working together on demonstrations and challenges. So how can we put this technology out in front of people, not just the public, but also our legislators? So that's really been another important thing, is to make sure that we go out, we engage with communities, we engage with local governments, and we start to show this technology. And that's been really, really important for our state.
Lessons learned? Any more?
I mean, I think just generally to echo those points, it is much easier to sell something positive than to push back against something negative. And if you stand around and wait for people to raise concerns about privacy or raise concerns about shooting down drones or whatever, you're going to be fighting on your back heels, and that's not where you want to be. And so where we've seen the most success, and this is why AVSI pivoted to the Drone Prepared program to fight against or to respond to the score-up piece, where we've seen the most success is where you're able to put together a story, a narrative for how this will benefit the citizens of your community, of your state, and the actions that the legislators can take to make that real. And the more that the citizens and community can see the benefits from these devices, the easier that sell is going to be, and the better your story is going to go.
Perfect.
I'll go with the story thing because in Michigan, there's probably saving a life once a day throughout the entire state. There's stories happening throughout. Some they don't talk about: swiftwater rescue, people falling in the ice, drones as a first responder, or using a drone to get blown up instead of an officer. Telling those stories is helping create that network effect, and then you get healthcare, and they want to test getting blood to an accident scene. That's one of how do you do that? And starting to show an EpiPen with someone having an issue out in the woods. So if you just keep tying that and keep rotating through that, it seems to go away. Here's the number one thing that I've seen, and I think we're having it in 2 weeks. We brought in all the Detroit high school. We had 200 people last year, 200 kids. We're going to have 300 this year, all flying drones. And what happens is they're like, oh, we can get our drone pilot's license. And we did. So we created a capability. If there's a company called Spexy out there, it's like crowdsourced imagery. We give them like 10 grand, and all of a sudden kids can access, a small part of the airspace and fly their drone and collect the data, and they get $10, and they can do like 10 of those an hour. So it's like getting these kids automatically making money really quickly. That's another really neat thing that we're doing with a lot of our cities is all of a sudden the parents are like, this is so neat. Get your pilot's license. You're making money through crowdsourcing. So be thinking like that. So those are two things that but if you get kids flying, the parents, and all of a sudden it goes away, just like that.
Well, and it's also the education, the outreach as well, instantly. Because if the kids are coming home talking about it, it's getting into those communities, it's having that conversation where it probably wouldn't have happened.
Taking those gamers and turning them into operators.
Yeah. Texas.
So I'll echo a lot of what Robin said with the coalition building and getting local government involved and all that. That's been critical in North Texas. I think one thing I'll add to that is maybe consider some of the stakeholders that are outside of the drone industry or just local government. For example, with drone delivery being such a big deal in North Texas, restaurants, right, are one of the primary customers, not end user, but we'll call them the customers, right? And we're doing outreach to them. Next 2 months from now, I'm speaking at the Texas Restaurant Show about, hey, is drone delivery right for your restaurant? And we're going to have a very diverse panel there. Obviously, I love drone delivery, so I'm a little biased, but we're going to have viewpoints on both sides. But basically, the idea is to really get that out there in front of the restaurant folks, because you add them to your coalition if they want it, and the local industry players want it, the local government wants it. All of a sudden, you have all these people chirping in the ears of the legislature, and you're just going to be that much more effective and powerful.
Perfect. I want to go through some very fast concluding remarks. So giving you guys all about 30 seconds to introduce to those, here in the audience as well that are watching online later, how can they reach you particular, and how can they reach you and follow what's happening in your state? And then we'll open it up to questions. So Mark, let's start down at you. How can they reach you, and how can they follow what's happening in Nevada?
Well, the state of Nevada is open for business for drone testing. And you can reach me via my LinkedIn profile, or you can Google the Nevada Center for Applied Research at the University of Nevada, Reno.
My name is Josh Turner. You can reach me, jturner@wiley.law, or we also have a blog where we post some thoughts and thought leadership on this kind of stuff, and feel free to follow that and to ping me with any questions that you might have.
All right, again, my name is Ron Leach, ron@leachsp.com or LinkedIn. I post quite a bit on there. Also going to shout out to my partner, Ray Adams, I mentioned earlier. He's the co-manager of the Cape Atlantic Test Range, FAA Test Range, and the Urban Low Altitude Transport Associations, which we formed about 5 years ago, promoting industry.
Yep, Todd Basile. You can just look me up on our website, gtlaw.com, or on LinkedIn, or, shine the bat signal, smoke signals, what have you, and, we'll get back to you.
You can find anything drones that are probably MEDC, which is the Economic Development Group for Michigan. Within that, you can drop down into different programs throughout the state, whether it be Camp Grayling or Detroit Air. Detroit Air is a lot of things we cover today. And then myself at Airspace Link. Thank you.
All right, Robin Grace. I'm at robin.grace@dot.ma.us. Sorry, that's a really long email address. I'm also on LinkedIn. And if you want to find out more about drones and AAM in Massachusetts, you can go to mass.gov. MassDOT Aeronautics has a website on there with a lot of information. If that's too much to remember, it's very well optimized on Google, so you can just type in drones in Massachusetts, AAM in Massachusetts.
Thank you, everyone. We do have a couple minutes left for questions. So do we have any questions for this spectacular panel?
I have one for Ron. Drone Gate. What was it? Were they drones?
These are not the drones you're looking for. Social media contagion, right? A lot of it was sighting of aircraft going into the pattern of JFK or Newark or Morristown airports. There was a state police helicopter misidentified as a drone. Believe it or not, we were chasing a planet one night that was stationary in the sky, and the police officer on the ground swore it was a drone. The problem with what happened with the drones in New Jersey was the messaging, right? You had the government saying, we don't know what they are, but they're not a danger or a threat. Well, sometimes not saying anything is probably the best. We don't know what they are, all right? We're investigating. Bottom line, it started in mid-November and stopped probably end of December before any real definitive answers as to what some of that was. But however, there was some research done, a lot of aircraft misidentification, but other than that, can't really say for sure if, in fact, we were being flown over top of.
And I think this is a huge issue. I mean, we heard people talk about the economic impact from the Gatwick incident, and the Gatwick incident is still very much contentious, right? I think we're going to keep seeing these things. It is the nature of humanity that they are concerned about things that they see in the sky. It seems weird, but apparently a lot of people never look up. And then when they do look up, they're stunned by all of the things that are up there. But that is a problem that we as a community are going to have to continue dealing with. The more information that we have about what's happening in the airspace, the more information that we can push out and share about what's happening in the airspace, the less those problems will mushroom into economic, sort of disasters, and the more that we'll be able to reassure the public that no, that is the pattern at JFK, or no, that is a Robinson helicopter, or you can see the American Airlines logo on that plane, so it's not a drone. And I think we'll all be better off. But it's something that we need to take quite seriously. I mean, it's funny, but we need to take it quite seriously because it poses a real threat to the growth of this community and something that we need to figure out how to solve.
If I could just jump in and say something, obviously the hysteria, kind of came across the border a little bit. And one thing that we've really been concentrating on is counter UAS, which is really our way of saying low altitude airspace awareness and really understanding who's using our airspace. So I do not lead the counter UAS team. That's Rudy Cuevas. He does a wonderful job. And it's really about having a capability to work with state and federal partners to understand if there is a sensitive area or if there is something that's going on of interest to the public, can we kind of get a mobile band together and be over there and be able to better understand what's going on in the airspace. So I think that's a really important stepping stone. We recently signed an MOU with U.S. Air Force and leverage some of their capabilities. So I think, it's something that we just need to be aware of. It's important to the public, and that means it's important to us.
Excellent. Any other questions from the audience? No, Robin, that was a great point. So, and I'll kind of close with that. As we go into our break and go into lunch, what we didn't get to talk about on this panel is, we talked about how drone friendly we are, right? It has a positive connotation. And I always say though, but for letting the good guys do what the good guys do with drones, you have to start tackling the problem of ensuring the bad guys don't do what the bad guys want to do. And that's the conversation of counter UAS. And so how prevalent the counter UAS conversation is in your state as well as these states, I would say you probably will all raise your hand. That is becoming an increasingly prevalent conversation at the state level. So reach out to the panel, keep in touch with them, engage with them over the lunch hour, engage with them online. Thank you all for enjoying and participating in the panel. I enjoyed it at least. And thank you for the audience for participating. So we'll hand it off to Don.